What is up guys, James here and welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we have a new setup. So in this video, we're going to be talking about Eleventy. Now if you've not used Eleventy before, it's a static page generator, similar to what you can do with Next.js or some of the other ones like Hugo in the Jamstack. So what I'm going to show you is how to build a homepage, a header, a footer, a blog, how to handle data using Eleventy, and of course we're going to use Tailwind CSS. So if this sounds like something that interests you, stick around as we get into the code. So here we are in our application, and as you can see from the beginning, all we have is just a package.json file with nothing in. So what we're going to do is install everything that we're going to need to create this. Now in this video we are going to be using Webpack, postcss, Tailwind, Eleventy, and that should be pretty much everything we're going to use. So there is going to be quite a bit of install to get through. So to begin with, let's install the essentials. Now everything here is going to be a dev dependency because we're not using anything when we're building this, because once you build it, you can deploy it anywhere you want because it's a static site and just uses HTML. So let's first install Eleventy. So to do that, you're going to do npm install Eleventy. Then we're also going to need syntax highlighting so that we can show cool code in our blog. So that's also part of the Eleventy package. So it's going to be another Eleventy / Eleventy. If I could spell, Eleventy - plugin syntax highlight. Then we're also going to need Tailwind. So we're going to do a couple of different things here. We're actually going to use the Tailwind CSS typography. So to do that, it's just at Tailwind CSS / typography, and we're going to use that to just default our stuff to a particular way, because the way that Tailwind works is you can set each of your H1s or H2s or paragraphs to whatever you might need. So in this version, we're actually going to use the Tailwind CSS typography. Obviously, we're going to need Tailwind, so that's just Tailwind CSS. And then we're going to actually need a few different plugins here. So because we're using Webpack, we're obviously going to need that. So you can just go ahead and install Webpack, and we'll install Webpack CLI. And then we need postcss. So that's postcss. We're also going to need postcss import and postcss loader. Now this might seem like a lot, but in the end, it's going to make it easy to create whatever we want with our application. So we're also going to need a few different things here. So auto prefixer is a favorite of mine. It essentially just adds vendor rules. So if you have something that you want to run on Firefox and Chrome and Safari and Internet Explorer, if you still have to support that, you don't have to worry about like, oh, did I use the right kind of CSS if you're using any custom CSS. We're also going to use cross-env, and that's because I know a lot of listeners out there are using Windows, as I am as well, so that we can pass in values such as node env production, and it's not going to complain that you're trying to stuff something in that Windows doesn't understand. On top of that, we're also going to include CSS loader and mini CSS extract plugin. We also need npm run all. We don't really need this, but it just saves a bunch of time in the long run. And just in case you don't want to type this all out, I'm going to leave a part of the description with this full install so that you can just skip ahead to the install part. And I want to make sure that we get everything situated, because we don't want to have to keep installing things. And that should be all of our dev dependencies. So you're going to do -- save dev and then hit enter. So once this is all installed and you've installed it on your side, we can go ahead and start building our application. Okay, so we now have our package.json done and our node modules installed. So let's start framing out this application. So first, let's create a source folder, and that's going to hold all of our source files. And then outside of that, in the root directory here, we're going to create a few files and we'll edit them as this video goes on. So first we need a .eleventy file, and that's going to handle anything that Eleventy needs to do. We're also going to have a postcss.config.js file, and we're obviously going to have our tailwind.css.js file. And of course we need Webpack, so webpack.config.js. And then let's build out our structure here. So inside of this source folder, we're going to have a few different things. So we're going to have a folder called blog that's going to contain all of our blog files. Then we're going to have one that's assets for any images that we might have outside of our blog. And then obviously we're going to need somewhere to describe where our templates for Tailwind CSS are going to go. So you're going to do an underscore here, and then it's just includes. And then we need one more, and that's our bundle file. So we can just do another folder and call that underscore bundle. So now we have our structure. This is how it's pretty much going to look. All our blog posts are going to go in here. Anything else, any other pages will just go inside this source directory. And then anything in this includes is essentially going to be what we would call templates. So we could do a footer and a header. We could also do our full layout, and we don't have to just repeat code. And then inside of this bundle is where we're going to take care of our bundling, which is going to bundle our Tailwind. And if you decide to add maybe Alpine, or you want to add turbo links or any cool JS that you want for your Eleventy, you can do that too and add it to this file. So first let's talk about Eleventy and how Eleventy actually works. So what we're going to do in this includes file here is we're going to create essentially a layout, and this layout file is going to be a .njk file. So let's just create it out first. So we'll call this layout.njk. Now, if you've never worked with NJK files before, we're going to talk about them quickly. If you've ever used something like liquid templating or Pug or any of those, it's fairly similar. But first, let's talk about that before we start creating our files. So the NJK files, or Nunjucks, is a rich and powerful templating language for JavaScript. So what you can essentially do here is template out things using inheritance, macros, asynchronous controls, and it's just another version of templating. It's really extendable. I like to use it. Some people might like to use liquid templating, but I prefer this. And essentially you can see here, this way that it works is that we have like block content here, and we can extend out a base HTML file that contains just the base layer, and then you can add your own flavor as you go. Mozilla uses it. It's super popular. You can do sort of built-in filters around certain things. You can use keyword arguments, and then you can transform and use inheritance. And it's super quick and easy to get started with. So that's what we're going to use. So first thing we need to do is actually do our layout file. So let's do that from the beginning. So here we are in our layout NJK file again. And the first thing we need to do is make this an HTML file. So let's go ahead and do that. And then underneath, you can just do your regular HTML. We can do a head, and we'll close out the head. And obviously we need a body. And then we're going to have a main. And then in the future, we will have a header and obviously a footer. But inside this main, and we'll close out the body. And then we'll close out the HTML. So as you can see right now, it looks fairly similar to a regular HTML file. Obviously, it doesn't look very pretty right now because we don't have indents, etc. But we can now begin. So let's add lang English so that we know that this is English language. And then inside of here, we're actually going to create a meta tag. And let's set that to charset equal to UTF-8. And I'm just typing this out. Obviously, we could have used the shortcut to do this, but I want to show you how to make it from start to finish. We also need the viewport so that we can have a nice responsive website. And inside of here, we'll have width equals device, width, comma, initial scale equals 1. So now we have that. We're actually going to do some linking here in the sense that we're going to have our bundles set out. So just like you'd link a regular style sheet, which we are going to do here, we need to have a style sheet. Then the href is going to be /assets/main.bundle.css, which I'm going to show you how we're going to create that in a minute. And then we need one more thing, and that's Prisma, which we're going to use for some syntax highlighting and some code highlighting, etc. So I'm just going to copy this in, and I'll put a link in the description so that you can copy and paste this too. Then finally, we need one more thing, and that's the script tag, which is going to take our bundled scripts that we're going to create. So let's just do that for now. And then let's talk about how we're going to handle that. So we're going to defer this bundle for speed. And then the last piece that we actually need is title. And now we're going to use some templating. So we'll just do title. And inside of here, we can just put the title variable, and it will take the title from the page and put it in here, which will show you how to do as we do a post. But imagine if you've gone to your about page, then the title will be the correct one. So now we've got that, we should talk about how the bundling works here. So in this bundle, we're going to create two files, a main.js and then a main.pcss, postcss. So in this main, all we're going to do is import the file we just created. So import main.pccs, like that. And then inside here, we're going to import all of our Tailwind. So Tailwind CSS/base. And we're also going to import Tailwind CSS/components. And we're also going to need our Tailwind CSS/utilities. Utilities. That doesn't look right. Let's try again. There we go. So now we've imported all of this and we have this main. We can actually use this to bundle up. So what we can do is tell Webpack, hey, when we get these files, we want to do something with them. So let's create Webpack. So first we're going to create a const at the top, and that const is going to be path, and we're going to require path. And that's just so we can take a file anywhere in our directories and be able to use it. Then we're going to take mini CSS extract plugin, And we're going to say we would require mini CSS extract plugin, which we installed previously. And then we're going to use these to our advantage. So let's do our module exports here. And then say entry is going to be source underscore bundle / main.js. And then we can set the mode here. And the way we can do that is just say process.env.node environment. And that just basically says if it's one or the other. So if it's development, we want to do one thing. And then if in production, we want to do a different thing. So we'll just do module. And then we're going to set our rules here. And what we're going to do is essentially tell it what we want to use to do anything here. So you set your rules like this. It's an array, and then it has an object. And we're going to say test. And then it's a / this way and a / the other way. .pcss $. So basically, we're looking for anything that has .pss and only that. And then we can use the mini CSS that we imported at the top here. And it has a function called loader. And we can say CSS loader, comma, post CSS loader. And that will take care of our bundled file. And then outside of this module, we're going to tell it about what we want to do with all of this bundled files. So we just say plugins. Actually, we can just say output. We will get to that plugin afterwards, but we need an output first and say path is equal to path.resolve. And then we need underscore directory name. So the directory name, and we want it to be dist, comma, assets. Now, if you're unsure about what's happening here, well, the dist file is what we're going to essentially tell Eleventy where to put our files, and the assets is where we're going to store anything else. And then we can just say file name, main.bundle.js, and that will be our main bundled file. Then in this plugins, what we're going to do is essentially just take all of our CSS and bundle it up. So we can just do mini CSS extract plugin. And then inside of here, we can just do file name, main.bundle.css, and then hit save. So now Webpack is essentially going to take all of our post CSS stuff and bundle it up into a main.bundle. And then it's going to create a CSS with everything in it in this main.bundle.css. That includes our Tailwind. So now what we should do is create our Tailwind config file here that tells Tailwind what we want as some defaults. Now I'm going to keep this really simple, and you can obviously change it as you so wish. So the theme, I'm just going to make one change here, and I'm going to add container. I'm going to set it to center true and padding to rem, just so it's easier and we can use container wherever we want something to be centered. I'm going to put extend in here, and we're not going to extend anything, but you can as you feel like you need it. And then for variants, we're also just going to have an empty file here, and we're going to extend absolutely nothing. Now, we'll put a link in the description talking about how you can add different things to your file as needed. And then we just need some plugins that we're going to be using. And the way the plugins work is you type the word require, and then you tell it what you need. So we're going to need this typography, and then we're going to tell it what we want to purge. So Because we're using Eleventy, it's slightly different than most, so we need to do dot/source/star/star. So anything that's in our source directory, any directories, we're going to purge.js files. Then we're also going to need to purge our template files, which is under source/star/star.njk, which is this file that we've created here. We want to make sure that that gets purged. And then the last thing that we want to be purged is any SVGs we might have. So it's just source/star/star.svg. Now I know we haven't actually seen anything happen yet, but we want to make sure this is all configured correctly the first time so that you don't have to spend hours trying to debug the code. Now for postcss, really quick one, we're just going to do a module exports, and inside of here we're going to do plugins, and then we're going to do require postcss import. We're also going to require Tailwind CSS, and then we're going to tell it where the config file is. So it's tailwind.config.js, and then finally auto prefixer to handle all of those cross browsers that we don't care about. So now we have this, we can actually start using Eleventy to do something. So Eleventy, just like anything in the Jamstack, it's statically generated files here. And in this version, you can actually tell it all sorts of cool things you want to do, such as if you want front matter to have excerpts and things like that, it's completely customizable. So we're going to tell it that we're going to use syntax highlight. And that's going to come from require and plugin syntax highlight. Then, just like the other modules that we've done, we're just going to do a module exports. We're going to say take in the config, and then we're going to create some changes here. So config.addPlugin means that we're going to take a plugin and add it in. So we're going to take the syntax highlight here and put that here. We want to use that. Then we're going to add pass through copy. And that's essentially going to take something from a file directory here and make sure that it gets bundled up with Eleventy. So in this example, we're going to use source assets. We're going to take that and put it as an assets folder. Then, as I stated before, because our blog, we want people to look at excerpts. So we're going to do a config set front matter passing options. And this says essentially like we want to be able to pass something from our blog that we create here in Markdown files and be able to use this somewhere else on the website. So we're going to do open parentheses here and a set of curly braces, and we'll close it out here. And we're going to say excerpt true. So we want to be able to have an excerpt somewhere. And then I'm going to customize our excerpt separator. The default is just 3 lines like this, but we're going to say we want to be able to say dash dash excerpt dash dash, so that we know if this comment is there, that is going to be our excerpt. Then we need to configure our templates. Now, if you don't configure this correctly, if it's not included in here, essentially what will happen is Eleventy will just purge the files away from you so that you won't be able to use them if you bundle something up like a JPEG file or a PNG or a WebP or a Markdown file, something like that. It will just purge the file out and won't bundle it up ready to be used. So I'm going to put some defaults here of JPEGs, PNGs, WebPs, Markdown files, and our NJK files here. Now you might think that's a bit weird, like this is a template, but our blog are also going to be built around our NJK files, and also pages that we create, such as an about page. You'll be able to use that here too. Then we just need to set how to set the browser sync. So when we're testing, so we'll do const set browser sync config, and then inside of here we're going to tell it the files are located in dist */**, and that will be anything in this dist folder that will get created. We want everything inside of there, and we can tell it to open true. Let's make sure we got a comment there, and then our last pieces are here. Is config set data deep merge to true, and then we just need to return something here. So now that all the config pieces are done, we're going to just tell it return directories is going to be input, and that's where it's going to get all the files from. So we want everything in source. And then what we want it to be outputted as, and we want it to output to dist. And that's obviously because we're telling it that that's where our files are going to be located, and that's actually where we want everything to be built. And then you can hit save, and now we've configured postcss, Tailwind, Webpack, and Eleventy. So let's create a page here that's just going to be our index page, and we can see if our index page loads using our layout. So to create a new page, just in the root, you're going to create index.njk. And that needs to be in the root of your source folder. So let's just make sure it's in the source folder. And then we can create something here. So the cool thing is now is that in this front matter section, we can set a title. So we'll just say this is the home page, and we can extend out that layout. So we just type the word layout and then do layout.njk. So essentially we're telling it like any time this page is loaded, we want to make sure that it includes this, which is essentially the body of this. And obviously we're going to fill out these pieces in a second so that it actually has something to load. Then we can just do something like section, and we'll close out the section here. And then inside of that section we can just do an H1, and we'll just say hello to our blog. And we make sure we close this out correctly. And that's it. So in theory now, this section should display this. Obviously, we need to just do something here. So inside of this file, what we can do is tell it that we want it to include essentially the body and then anything that the content contains. So for the body, I'm just going to add a class flex column min h screen, and then inside of our main we'll also add a class of container flex grow and py of 8 from the top. And then what we can do inside of this main, we can just do our curly braces as we've done before, write the word content, and then save. And what happens here is if there is content, it'll do it. Otherwise, it'll just override them. And we can hit save. So at this point, we're ready to actually test this out. Obviously, we don't have any scripts here to test this out. So let's quickly just write up some scripts here. We're going to need a build. We're going to need a build Eleventy. we're going to need a build Webpack. And we're going to need a clean so that we can purge all of our files as needed. We're going to need a start, which is going to combine all of these together. And then we'll also do a start Eleventy and a start Webpack. Okay, so our build one here is we're going to take cross-env, which we imported before, and this is basically for Windows users, and this allows us to do this, which is that we can pass in the word production here. Then we can do npm run all, which is a great feature, and say clean, p, and build. And this will run clean and then run all of our build commands here. So build Eleventy and build Webpack. So we can hit save here. And then our Eleventy one is really simple. It's just Eleventy. And then for Webpack, you just do Webpack. And for clean, we're going to do rm rf dist. So we're going to remove our dist folder. And then to start, we're going to do npm run all. We want to run clean. And then we want to run all of our build commands. And then we want to do p start like this. And what this will do is it will run all of the build commands and then run the start commands also. So for a start Eleventy, we're just going to do our Eleventy -- serve and then quiet. And that will build and serve our files there. And then for Webpack, it's just Webpack -- watch. So now we should be able to run our start command here, and it should build and bundle everything up ready to go. So I'm going to run that command, and then I'll meet you on our localhost website. Okay, and here we are. We have hello to our blog as an H1, and it seems to be working as expected. So now what we can do is actually start using this index file to create some interesting and obvious changes that will work really well. So let's create our header and let's create a footer. And then what we'll do is we'll create our actual single blog post and test out how that works. So I'll meet you back in the code. Okay, so we're back in the code and we now have a header njk file, and we're just going to create a header, and we'll just create an empty class for now. And then inside of that, we can have a div with an empty class because we're going to use some Tailwind. And inside of that div, we're going to create our nav class. So let's make sure this gets closed out. And also our header. And let's just do some tab work here so that we know where we're landing. And then we need a nav and close nav. And just like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some classes here. I want to have text set to gray of 700. We're going to set the background to white. We'll have a border on the top and border on the bottom. And then we'll set the body font. Then inside of here, we're going to add the container class that, if you remember correctly, we set here. So we're going to use that along with flex column, flex wrap. We'll have a padding of 5. MX is auto so that it's in the center. We'll say medium screens, items to the center. And on MD, we'll also set it to flex row. And this is why I like Tailwind. It's something that I am still getting used to, but it is definitely very quick to build out certain items, and it is much easier in the Eleventy world to use Tailwind over other CSS frameworks. So now we need our nav class. So its nav is flex wrap, and we want the items in the center again. We want to justify it also in the center, and we want the text base. And on a medium screen, we'll set ML to auto, and MD also will be MR auto so that it's in the center. So now in this nav class, you can just create a tag. So we'll just do a href equals / for now. And we'll set a class here to make it nice. And we'll just say margin on the right of 6, text medium, font semi-bold. And on hover, we'll do text gray 800. And then we can just do close this tag out and say this one we want home. And then we can just essentially copy and paste this here and say we want 3 links, and we'll have contact and about. So now we've created this nav, what we can actually do is go to our layout here and say, I actually want to use this in every single time this is used. So above our main class here, but inside of the body, we can add % here and say include header.njk. And then close it out with another %. So now if we go back to the website, we should see a header. So I'll meet you over there and we can talk about what we've done. Okay, so we do have a header at the top, and then we have our hello blog here. And obviously these links don't do anything right now, but we do have a header at the top. So let's go ahead and make some more changes and add a footer, and then we can sort of play around. So we're back in here and we're going to create a footer now. So footer.njk, and that footer file is going to contain a real simple footer that we can use on every page. So we're going to need a footer. Let's close that out. And then inside of that, we're going to need a div. And then inside of that, we'll also have one more div to contain everything. And then at that point, what we will do is start creating our P's and our links, etc., to create everything the way we want. So what we'll do is we'll add a class on the footer, and we'll say we want the text to be gray, and we'll set it to 700. Background will be white again, border on the top, and body font. Then on this div, we'll have no class, and we'll just use that as a holding place. And then on this one, we will have a class of container. We'll have flex as a column, flex wrap, and we'll have a padding of 5, a padding on the Y of 6. On large, we'll do px 20, and small, we'll do flex row. Now on the next part, in this div that I'm going to create here, we're going to have a class of flex wrap, items in the center, justify center, and text-base. And then this div is going to contain everything that we need. So in this div, we're going to have a P here, and this P is just going to have a class of margin right of 5. Text is going to be small, text in the center, and I'll make the text light gray, so we'll use gray 200, and then I'll just say something like, let's close it out, and then I'll put my name here, so we'll just say James Perkins. Then underneath this, we can start with an A link here, and we'll just put the href to a £sign for now. And we can decide what you want to use these for. So again, we need to justify it in the center. We'll put a margin on the right of 5. Text is small, text in the center. We'll make this text blue, gray of 200. I'm pretty sure that's a class. And then we'll hover. We'll set it to text blue 700. And then we can say this is going to be a link. So we'll just type the word link for now. And we'll close it out. Then we can just copy this again. And now we can have a secondary link. And we'll call this link number 2. And then underneath this div, we can create a span. And this span is going to contain something on the right-hand side just to fill out the space. So we'll do inline, flex, justify, center, margin on the top of 2, small, ml auto, small, mt at the top of 0, and justify, end. And we can say inside of here, we'll have another P, and we'll have the similar class as we did before with our other P on the other side. We'll say MR5, text is small, text in the center, text is gray, and set to 200. And we can just say creating tutorials for you. And then hit save. So now we have this, what looks really complicated, but is quite a small amount of code. We can go back into our layout folder and say in this layout file, under this main, we can now do includes, and then footer.njk, and a %sign. So this will now include the footer. So now what we can do is go back to our website and check it out. Okay, so we're back in the website, and as you can see, we now have a footer here that says creating tutorials for you with my name and a link. So we're sort of building out this index page, but really we want to see how blogs work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Markdown file in our blog folder and show you how you can create a post, layout, and handle blog posts. Okay, so I've created a blog post here and I've done a few things. I've added some front matter, and it's just the title, the layout that we want to reference that we haven't created yet, a featured image, which is a doggo, page title, this is the other title, and then text. And here I've created an excerpt, and then I've put in some stuff like JS code, Python code, no code, some tables, H1s and H4s, basically just to show you how this all works. So what we can do now is in this includes, we can create a new file here and say we want a post.njk, and this post file is going to handle our posts. So first we need to just create that and say layout.njk, and that will reference this layout file and use it for our pages. Then all we need to do is create an article, and that article is going to hold our blog posts that we have created. And it's as simple as that, right? Because we've made this one main layout, and yeah, it took a little while to get there. Now we can just reference it all the time and just add little spices here and there of things we want. So in this article, we're going to add a class here, and we're going to ask the class of pros and pros LG. And this is the typography that we imported from our Tailwind to give us some default styles. We're going to tell it the max width is 2XL, and we'll have MX Auto, and we'll set BG to white. Then inside of here, we'll have an H1, and we'll say class, I don't know, PY8, so we have padding at the top of the screen, and we can just do title. And then we can do H1. And then inside of here, we can do content. Save. And just like that, we've created a whole new page structure without having to type more than 10 lines total with spacing. So now we're actually ready to handle what happens when we use this. So inside of here, we have this layout. And what Eleventy is smart enough to do is to build this page out using that. So now if we run our task of npm start, we should be able to build this blog post and navigate to the page, and it should look fantastic. So I'm going to build this and I'll meet you over there. Okay, so I've loaded up the page and we're at my first blog, and as you can see, it's already gorgeous looking. We got H1s that look great, we've got syntax highlighting for code, and everything looks the way we expect it to. So what we need to do now is actually handle this being able to be on our homepage, because our homepage right now is blank. So let's go back and create a functionality that will handle this for us. Okay, so we're back in our index file here, and we're going to add a little bit of code here. So in the top, we can just do pagination. We can say data is collections.post. Size will be 6, so that's the maximum. We want to reverse this, set it to true. And alias will be posts. And essentially what we're going to do is create this collection of posts, and we're going to take them and use them somewhere else on the page. And this is what's fantastic about the way that Eleventy works. So all of our data is available, and it's smart enough to know where to grab it from. So what we can do now is underneath this section, underneath the H1, we can create a div class here. And this class will contain our wrapper. So what we can do is just do a container, and we'll say px at the 8 at the top, and we'll do pang at the top of 24. mx is auto, and on large screen px is 4. Then inside of this div that we have here, we're going to create another one, and this div is going to have a class of flex wrap, text to the left, and we're going to say percentage for posts in posts. So essentially, for every post that's in this post file here, we want to do a div, and we'll add classes here to make it easier. We'll do a px of 8, a py of 6. On large screens, we'll do width of 1/3. And MD will do width is full. And then what we can do is essentially take pieces of our posts, such as the images that we have, like the doggo JPEG or the islands JPEG, and use those to our advantage to make our homepage look fun and exciting. So here what we'll do, we'll add another div class around padding of 6, rounded MD. BG will do blue gray 200. And then we can do an image class here. And we'll say we want the object to be cover, object in the center, width is full, height is going to be 40, MB of 6, and rounded. So now we have this image. We can then say, okay, for this image, the source is going to be the post.url. So that'll be from this post, we have a URL. And then we can do post.data.featured image. And then the alt we can just set to, for now, blog post image. So that image tag is now done. So we can close that out and say, okay, underneath that, we're going to need an H2. And this H2 is going to contain the title. So we can just do MB of 3. We'll set the text to large, font to semi-bold, text to gray. And we'll do LG. We'll do the text to 2XL. And then the title font. And say post.data.title. So we're essentially just saying we want that post title. And we can close this H2 out. And then underneath it, we'll have the excerpt so that someone can read a little bit about the blog post before they start using it. So we'll do MB4, text is base, leading, relaxed. And we just say post.data.page.excerpt. And then if they're interested in reading more, we can actually have underneath here an A tag that says ahref, use the post URL or URL. And then we can just add some classes on here to make it look kind of nice. So we'll do inline flex, items in the center, font semi-bold, text we'll set to blue at 700. On medium screens, we'll have a margin at the bottom of 2. On large, we'll have no margin on the bottom. Hover, we'll set the text to blue dash 400. And we can just write, read more. And we can close that A tag out. And then we can just make sure that we have everything all set here and hit save. And at that point, we just need to end our for if. So underneath our divs here, we need to make sure we've closed them all out. So this div has a div. This div has a div. But this div does not have a div yet. So let's create a div here. And we'll just add a tab here so that we know which one is which. And in between our two divs here, we can just do end for. And that will stop the for loop that we have going on. And then we can hit save. And now we can go ahead and test this out. So I'll meet you back on the website. Okay, so we've logged in and now we have a nice cover image and then some excerpt here for our code. So overall, it's looking pretty nice. So the only things that we really need to do is sort of make sure that we have a about page here that we could use and then make sure everything's working as expected. So let's go back in the code and create a contact page and then an about page, and I'll leave you a challenge of creating the contact page. Okay, so at this point, we just need to create our about page. So in here, we can just create an about njk file and add at the top a title and say about me. We can set the layout to layout.njk, and then we can just create our main class here and say, actually, this can just be a div because we already have a main class. We don't need two. We can just say container, and then a py of 8. And outside of that, we can just create an h1 and say class is equal to text center. Text is 5xl. And we can just say this is the title. And then page. So basically what we're doing is taking it from this front matter here and putting it in here and sort of doing a couple different sections. Then we can do a section here and add a class on it of text is gray 700, and we'll add body font. Then we can create a div, and this div is going to be a way of surrounding everything. So we'll just do container, and then we'll have flex col, items in the center, px of 5, py of 16, mx auto, lg of px dash 20, lg of py 36, and on mds we'll have a flex row. And then inside of that, we're going to create a 5/6 width that we're going to use for a picture. So we're going to do div class is equal to width dash 5 dash 6, md of 10, lg max width, lg will have width of full, and medium will have a width of half, and then MD will have no margin on the bottom. And then we can just have an image here, and we'll just say we want this image to be an object center, max width of extra small. We'll have it rounded, and we'll call this alt equal my face. And then the source we can equal to /assets/me.jpg, which I currently don't have in here, but I will put in. And then this will show that you can load images from our asset directory. Then we can create another div here. And this div will just contain information about yourself. So we can do div class equal to flex column, items in the center, text in the center. On large screens, we want the flex to grow. And MD, we want the width to be equal to 1/2. And then LG, we want PL of 24. MD will have padding on the left of 16. And then on medium screens, we want items start. And then MD will have text to the left. And then inside of this paragraph class, which is going to be where some text is, we'll do MD equals to text base leading relaxed, text in the center, text is gray, and we'll have it at 700, and then text is left, and LG text is extra large. Then inside of here, I'm just going to write something, something, something. And then we can close that p tag out. Then close our div tags. So we have 2 of those. And close out our section tag and our main tag. Oh, we don't have one of those. I think I used a div. Right. And that should be it. Make sure that's a closing tag. Hit save, and we can go and look at this about page. So I'll meet you back in our website. Okay, so I've come back and hit the about page, and now we have this about page with my face, slightly rounded corners, something, 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 and we're good to go. So if we look at our homepage now, these links work. We have great highlighted blogs. We have an about page. So there we have it, guys. Eleventy, Tailwind CSS, and Webpack. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave it a like, leave some comments, tell me what else you want to see, and of course, make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, see ya.